Hey everyone, I'm Justin Fiedler, and this is DIRTRACKR Conversations. This time on the show, I'm joined by Speed Sport and Sprint Car and Midget magazine contributor Kyle McFadden to talk all things Central Pennsylvania sprint car racing. He gives us the rundown on what's happened so far this season, what to expect this weekend and beyond. Plus, we talk about a ton of different drivers, including Matt Campbell, Tim Shaffer, and many others. We also discuss whether or not there is currently a changeover happening to a new generation of racers between the area's big tracks. Enjoy my conversation with Kyle McFadden. First off, I feel like you're one of those names that we've seen kind of pop up here in recent years with, a lot more coverage on speed sport and sprint car, but give me just a quick kind of rundown on your background and kind of how you got to this point.
Yeah. So before I got with Speed Sport, I was actually covering college basketball and high school sports for various newspapers back at home, like the Frederick News Post, where I live back in Maryland, Baltimore Sun, Washington Post. I used to run a website called Maryland Sports Access, where I would go all over the state and cover high school games and college games, kind of similar to what I do in PA, just with racetracks and racing and things like that. And then last May, kind of when racing was getting back going during the pandemic, I really had nothing going on, and I just wanted to kind of always grew up a race fan, but never really got too serious with the racing coverage and the racing, just like the writing and things like that. And I had a pretty extensive journalism background up to that point, and I just kind of wanted to get my feet wet in that and kind of branch out. And sprint car racing was right in my backyard, 2 hours away from me at the very most. So I was like, why not try to give it a shot? And here we are now. So yeah.
Do you have, what's your kind of background with sprint car racing? Like, did you go to races as a kid? Were you aware of the community? What was your knowledge? Have you been trying to kind of learn through all of this as well?
Yeah. So I grew up a big late model fan. Um, my dad would take me to the track a lot through the years. Um, Hagerstown Speedway, that was like my home track. I only lived like 40 minutes away from Hagerstown. And so that's where I would be a lot as a kid. And honestly, I didn't see my first sprint car race until 2017. I think that was the year I was kind of going through social media and saw that Kyle Larson was racing a sprint car near me. And I was like, well, Dad, like I got nothing going on tonight. So might as well go see this race with Kyle Larson in it. And I'll never forget the first time when I saw a sprint car rolling down the front stretch at Hagerstown Speedway. I was honestly hooked in that moment. And eh, it's been a lot of learning up to this point because I didn't really watch sprint cars growing up, just the names and the history of the sport and just how the cars work in general. So it's been a lot of learning in that regard, but honestly, I think it's really cool because I'm kind of in this with an open mind. Didn't really have any drivers that I knew growing up in sprint car racing. I knew nothing. And so it's really cool to just kind of go into this with an open mind. As a late model guy growing up, I would have never really thought I'd be this involved in sprint car racing, but here things are now. And yeah, so it's fun.
I want to talk to you a ton about Central PA stuff. And obviously, the kind of beginning of the season here, I feel like we've had a ton of different winners. And it doesn't really seem like, we haven't had a DeWeese or a Dietrich or, a Macri or somebody really kind of seize control of some of these places, between Lincoln and Williams Grove and Port Royal. And, we got guys like Justin Peck coming in here winning. Kind of give me your overall impressions of the Central PA sprint car season here, kind of early in the spring here.
Yeah, honestly, it's kind of hard to judge. I was kind of talking with Danny Dietrich about this. When do you feel like things are going to ramp up? When do you feel like you will get a good feel of your race program, feel of the competitors around you, kind of where you feel like you stack up? And honestly, I think up to this point, you know, Dylan Cisney's been really strong. Chase Dietz has been really strong. Those are kind of two names that when you look at the Pennsylvania fold and you look at guys like Freddie Raymer, Danny Dietrich, and Anthony Macri, those three were kind of the three in PA last year that won their fair share. I think Macri won 11 times, Danny won 12 times. I think Freddie won 9 times. So that's over 30 wins right there last year. And then kind of after that, it kind of tailed off in terms of the weekly guys. So it's really cool to see Tim Shaffer come in here, have the instant success that he's having in that Hefner car. Brandon Raymer too. He's a new name that has run well up to this point in the season. He's 10th in the Central PA point standings. Alan Crimes snapped a year-long winless drought at Lincoln. So it's cool to see these new faces emerge and also see guys like Alan Crimes, kind of break long winless droughts. And then Jimmy Siegel too. I think he broke a 3-year winless drought at Lincoln this past weekend. So it's really cool to kind of see old faces emerge, Tim Shaffer coming in with the posse in that Hefner car, and to see guys like Dylan Cisney, can they keep this up? Can he build on this? Can he build into something even more, as the bigger races start to come in to the picture, over these next few months. But I feel like we're really going to get a good feel maybe this weekend at Lincoln with the first time trial show there, and kind of see where guys' programs are, because we all know that time trials and sprint car racing, I mean, that's where it's won. That's where the nights are won. So who has that speed, who can lay down those 2 quick laps, who has their program in place for those big shows. So Danny Dietrich, when I was talking with him 2 weeks ago, he feels like once we get those time trial shows going, that's when he feels like where things are with him and where things are with everybody else. So hopefully this weekend we can maybe kind of see where guys are. It's kind of tough, with the pill draws and things like that, to really see where programs are. But you look through the field and see guys like Chase Dietz who are advancing, their race car seems like 5-6 spots every night to finish on the podium, and guys like Kerry Matson, driving through the field, and Tim Shaffer went 14th to 4th last weekend at the Grove, and kind of see where see what they can do in a time trial format. So yeah.
For those people that aren't super up on Central PA scene, give me an idea about like the kind of format of the racing. It's a little bit different in Central PA than it is certain places. You mentioned the pill draw there, but give me an idea about kind of what that general Central PA format is on a nightly basis.
Yeah, so you got your handicap format like at Lincoln. I'm pretty sure their handicap format is the Central PA points. So Central PA points are paid 1st through 10th, or awarded 1st through 10th. You got 50 points for first place, and then going on back to 10th, you get 10 points. And so I believe that's how they invert things. It's a full invert. To my knowledge, at the Grove, I think it's just a random draw, like a random pill draw. And then at Port Royal, they have a handicap format too. So, that shakes things up quite a bit, because you're going into the night, if you win at Lincoln one week, you're probably going to be starting in the back the next week. If you don't finish the race at Lincoln one week, you're going to be running up front, or have a chance to run up front the following week. And then obviously at the Grove, your night's kind of dependent upon what pill you draw. So, that, as the race fan inside of me wishes they would time trial every night, or kind of do away with these whole pill draw things. I kind of like the handicap format too, because I have a good friend who owns a race team, a 358 race team. He with the handicap format, yes, it's can get kind of dangerous when you got slower cars up front, but it gives those teams an opportunity to get better each week, showcase what they have, try to make a few extra bucks, and hopefully, like, in return, they can put that toward their race teams and keep on building toward their future endeavors. But um you know kind of wish we did away with the whole pill draw formats and the handicap shows, and just wish we time trialed every week. That's just me, but don't really see that changing anytime soon. So.
Do you think that because of the way the format is like why we've seen some of these guys like Wagaman and Jim Siegel and some of these guys that have won lately, like they've gotten these opportunities because they've gotten those decent pill draws?
Yeah, the first, definitely the icebreaker, Tim Wagaman started, I believe he started on the front row. Justin Peck has definitely gotten lucky, definitely gotten fortunate with those pill draws here. He's got 2 wins in Central PA, and looking through it now, he's got second place on opening day at the Grove, and he started up front, or started toward the front in that too. So yeah, those guys, not, Tim Wagaman, I was watching him last year, he was really fast all throughout the year. So, and I didn't really see this past weekend's race at Lincoln, the one that Jimmy Siegel won. But pill draws for sure have been, kind of setting the tone for the night, or setting the tone early this season in Central PA. So yeah, I mean, you don't want to discredit, wins up to this point, or putting like asterisks on wins or like whatever, but because like Justin Peck's had speed even without a good pill draw. The icebreaker at Lincoln, he almost didn't qualify for that race, and he ended up finishing 9th on a track that was very hard to pass. It was hammered down, wet, very heavy. So you look at performances like that kind of validate his speed so far. So, I mean, to some degree, yes, some no. You kind of do have to look at, kind of break things down during the course of the night and kind of see how guys are running elsewhere, if they're not starting up front, and kind of look at the other races they've ran and see what they've done. So, yeah, but as I mentioned earlier, I think we're going to get a good feel on, where guys are at this weekend at Lincoln with their time trial programs.
I like to have fun with Jeremy Elliott once in a while, and he posted his top 50 this week, and mentioned the Justin Peck pill draw as something, that he thought obviously had helped Peck win those races. And I came at him a little bit just because it's not easy to win anywhere. I don't care if you're in Pennsylvania or with the Outlaws or the All-Stars or Ohio or California, like you still have to go win the race.
Right.
So, but I feel like, that like something that kind of came out of that conversation was that people kind of thinking Central PA is down a little bit in terms of talent, or, maybe some of these young guys just aren't quite to the level of some, if you start talking about some of the guys of the past, Stevie Smith and,
the names are big.
Yeah, exactly. Like these guys in the past, like, we're maybe not where we have been in the past, but like you look around and it's Macri and it's Dylan Cisney and it's Freddie Raymer. Like you've got a lot of young guys that are super talented, but where do you think we are kind of in the terms of Central PA sprint car talent right now?
Yeah, I was talking with Jared Esch about this last weekend or 2 weekends ago at Port Royal, and his dad is Doug Esch, very accomplished racer in the area. And, he told me and this is no surprise, but the drivers are feeling this. He said it might be a weird transition, from 8 years ago, even 3, 4, 5 years ago, to the next 3, 4, 5, 6 years, maybe not that long, but at least right now, it's a weird transition. So, because when you look at the record books, I was compiling wins and I'm still in the process of doing that. And, Lance has got well over 300 wins. And then you have Danny Dietrich, who has over 100 wins between the 5 main tracks: Williams Grove, Lincoln, Port Royal, Baps, and Sealands Grove. But after that, it was a huge fall off.
Mm-hmm.
I think Freddie Raymer's got 30 wins. Lucas Wolf's got over 40 between those 5 tracks, but he's not in the area. Not now. He's with the All-Stars. Anthony Macri's got 10, I think. I think Dylan Sisney's got 7 between those 5 tracks. And, so in terms of, you look at the history books and it really opens your eyes, and it's like, wow, there's a lot of faces that are unproven. And so, as Keith Kaufman told me, I was on the phone with him this past week. It's like, those guys are going to win races, but it's like, how many of them are they going to win? Because when you think of the greats like Lance Deweese and Fred Raymer, like they've had 20-win seasons, 30-win seasons. A guy like Danny Dietrich hasn't won over 20 yet. And so, I know that's on his mind. I did a story on him to start the year, and that's like one thing that he badly wants to do. He wants a 20-win season. He hasn't had that yet. And so when you look at the greats and the wins list and all the guys that, we say they are legends in the sport, they've won 30 races a year. They've had multiple 20-win seasons. So when you look at the guys now, it's like, okay, like who's going to rise up to that? Who's going to fill out that role? Are we even going to have somebody who's going to win, to that extent? And then also too, like when you think of the posse, it's like, it's guys who can beat the Outlaws, who has the speed to contend with the Outlaws each and every single week. And, Danny Dietrich, he's beaten the Outlaws before more than once. He did it, I think, 2 years ago at Bridgeport. So he's done it recently. Lance didn't do it last year, but we know that he can do it anytime he rolls into the track. But then a guy like Freddie Raymer, who's like top 3 in that picture, he doesn't have an outlaw win at the Grove, and he only has 1 outlaw win, and that was at Lincoln, I think, in 2017. So, I think, it's a weird transition. I didn't grow up watching the posse in their heyday in the golden years, but I do watch old clips and highlights and races here and there, and try to learn and try to put myself back then and kind of picture what life was like. And it's we'll see what happens. I think the drivers feel it. I know Chase Dietz, I was having a conversation with him. He feels that pressure of trying to live up to it, especially for him, like in that Trone car, a car that's got so much history, that won so much, even with Greg Hotnet in it. And yeah, so a lot of fresh faces. I'm just kind of looking down the list, like Chase Dietz and Brandon Raymer. What can he do now in a full-time ride at the Grove? He's obviously at Lincoln every Saturday night. Guys like Logan Wagner, Jeff Halligan's got good speed early on. Matt Campbell taking over that 21 car that Brian Monteith made famous at Lincoln. So, yeah, it's just comes down to, who's going to take advantage of this transition period, and, who has the speed to contend with Outlaws. I think that will really define things, as we transition into these next, this next year, 2, 3, 4, 5 years. Because I think Lance Deweese, God forbid something happens to him, right? But he'll be competitive as long as he stays healthy for these next 5 years. That's what he thinks. So he's not going anywhere anytime soon, as long as the 69K team stays healthy, intact, and together. I feel like we can see Lance racing well into 2025, well into 2026. So it'll be cool to have him around, hopefully that long, to kind of ease along this transition, so to speak. But yeah, no, I mean, the drivers feel it. I feel it, and I haven't even been around the sport that long. Just the youth and the inexperience, and last year was the first time that the posse didn't beat the Outlaws since 1998. So, um, you
Do you
know,
think that, like, if we kind of look around the national scene, right, and you've got, you mentioned Brent Marks there, but, he's running All Stars. You've got Zierfoss out with the Outlaws, and then even like Logan and Jacob,
yeah,
those are four guys that would probably be pretty serious heavy hitter guys in Pennsylvania. And it's like, I feel like it's a good thing and a bad thing, right? Like you've got these great
sure,
guys coming out to the national scene, but then you're also missing them on a local basis. Where do you kind of think, I mean, do you think those guys would have kind of filled some of those holes if they would have stuck
sure.
around Pennsylvania?
That's true. I thought about that last night as I was writing this story about the posse, and that'll go in our May magazine issue. And yeah, it's definitely interesting to look at the guys who are out on the road. Um, and they have to be in that conversation too, right? Homegrown, PA grown, out on the road doing great things. Like Logan Schuhart's got it. He will be right in the hunt of that championship chase, and Jacob Allen, and Brent Marks has been improving that program on the road, as these years go on. And yeah, it's I don't think that gets talked about enough, when we look at the posse and the transition period and the guys going out on the road. And that seems to be maybe the new thing, and then that makes you think, like, well, maybe who's next, who could be going out on the road more. You think about guys like Anthony Macri, is he going to stay around much longer in PA, or is he going to hit the road? Dylan Sisney has talked about wanting to hit the road more. So it just kind of makes your mind churn and think about, well, who's next? Um, yeah, to answer that question, yeah, for sure. And then a guy like Lucas Wolf, who we know what he can do in the wheel or in the race car. And but he hasn't been the same since that accident 2 years ago at Port Royal. The second accident, I think that was his second race back after he hurt his back. And that was a pretty vicious accident. And he hasn't really been the same since. But yeah, Brock Zierfoss too, didn't win last year in PA, but he was strong and confident and really looking forward to this World of Outlaws run. So yeah, you take those guys and you kind of take away, put them back in PA, and it's not as strong as the posse of old, but I mean, it's certainly strong.
I want to ask too about you kind of mentioned Shaffer in there and the Hefner car, and obviously the Hefner car wasn't super fast last season and had a few
Mhm.
different drivers through it, and they made some changes. But now this year with Shaffer behind the wheel and Heath Moyle kind of leading that deal,
Yeah.
what do you think is possible there? I feel like Shaffer was kind of a guy that people thought was maybe kind of at the tail end of this thing. Maybe he hasn't been what he's been in the past, and now it seems almost like he's been revitalized a little bit, and that team's picked up a couple of wins and,
Yes.
and looking pretty good.
Yeah. Tim, he's been around this thing a very long time. And when he told me after he went, uh, he picked up like 14 positions one night at Lincoln, might have been the second night or first night, might have been the icebreaker. Um, he said he hasn't been this comfortable in a race car probably ever. And that's like, you look at the things he's done, like this is a Knoxville Nationals champion here that we're talking about. And to hear him say that, it's like, okay, like, things are really clicking over there. And, you think, you look at a combination like that, yes, the 72 didn't really have a great year last year. Had like three different drivers in it: Ryan Smith, Shane Stewart, and then Darren Pittman. Didn't really have a great year. Um, but also too, like you look at, Ryan Smith, and that whole deal kind of didn't work out. And yeah, it he takes that hard, and I know lots of fans and people are hard on him for not making that work and things like that. That's a tough transition from Greg Hodnett, and what happened there, to throwing Ryan in there and try to make that work. And then you wonder, like, well, is the car good enough? Was Greg that good? Like, things, you start to wonder there. And then the transition period happened last year. I think Heath came in midway through the season to kind of scope things out. And, that's when Ryan Smith and Hefner kind of parted. Um, and so, to bring in Darren Pittman and, they had speed last year, and, how Darren drives the race car and how Tim Shaffer drives the race car, they're completely different. That's what Heath at least told me. Um, and so, like it is in any professional sport, any sport period, it takes time for a team to gel together and kind of form an identity and a notebook. And but to see what they've done this early in the season and the success and the speed certainly isn't surprising, but it's just kind of like, wow, like, things are really clicking over there and the personalities gel, and, and that's important. And things that people don't really think about in sports and in racing is, the personalities have to click, uh, communication factor is a huge thing too. So yeah, Tim, I think he's going to win. It's hard to put a number on it, but it'd be hard pressed for him not to win at least a dozen races. I think in that car, maybe 15, he could hit 20. I don't really know. I think if you look at potential, far, you look at Speed Week, Pennsylvania Speed Week, and, some early kind of favorites to win that, Tim's got to be in that picture, in that car. So we'll see. It's cool to see him run well. So, at this stage in his career, and, in that Hefner car, and, just to kind of give more life to this area. I know all the younger drivers appreciate him being here, because you learn from that stuff too. So, and I think it's important for him to be here too, especially during this kind of transition period, as we've talked about. So, yeah.
In mentioning that transition period, like the one of the drivers that is kind of not in the picture anymore that won a ton of races is Brian Monteith and that 21 car. But I'm curious, what is your sense and kind of what is the community feeling around Matt Campbell? Like I think I've seen Danny Dietrich tweet some pretty nice things about Matt Campbell, but is he a guy we should really be paying attention to kind of in the years to come here?
Yeah, for sure. And Jerry Parrish owns that 21 car. He's said it to me many times, and Matt's even said it to me, that Matt reminds Jerry a lot of Brian back when he was hired in that car back in 2002 or 2003 or something like that. So, yes, he doesn't have the resume, doesn't have the big number of wins growing up through the years or this or that, but he's, you watch him race and he races a lot like Brian, always pushing the car to, to the limit. He's got the work ethic. He's in the shop multiple times a week. Great kid too, got a great personality. He's had to navigate hard things just to get here. The death of his dad, that's really weighed on him through the years. But when you look at the success that he's had in his family car, the 16C, because his family, not a lot of people know about this. They kind of jumped into sprint car racing, didn't really have a whole lot of knowledge of it, and to see, how far they came in that short amount of time, and to see, him pick off multiple wins throughout their 2-3 years together in that family car is no small feat. And to see him kind of jump in and take this opportunity in that 21 car, we all know how good that car can run, and how good that car has been over the years with Brian Monteith in it. I think he's definitely one of those guys that will grow into, when we look at guys 10 years from now, 15, 20 years from now, I think he'll be a guy in that conversation in terms of, posse guys, who have really made a name for themselves. So yes, and he's young, he's only 22, I think. And I think this is his fourth year of full-time sprint car racing, fourth or fifth. So usually takes about 4 or 5 years just to really see consistent results in a 410 sprint car. They're just that hard to drive, and experience is big. And so give that a little bit more time, and I think we'll start seeing things with them. So yeah.
It is obviously April 1st as we sit here. So we've had, kind of three months here of the season so far, but obviously you're putting out content all the time, and, you cover sprint cars and late models and all kinds of stuff. But as you look back kind of over these first 3 months, what's a story or a couple of stories that you've written that you were really excited to put out, something that you thought was really neat?
Yeah. The one I did on Brian Monteith was pretty cool. I thought, just kind of talking with Jerry Parrish, just about what made him special. The one on Shane Stewart, I was really proud of, just kind of telling his story and, why he bought Port City, and, what could come with that. I'm trying to think. There's one I'm working on Kyle Larson right now. I'm actually working on a bunch right now.
I would say, because that was going to be my other question is what do you have
got
coming?
so many stories coming, and I'm kind of in a weird transition period myself, going through some kind of personal things, just kind of, adulting, so to speak. But yeah, I'm working on a story on Kyle Larson right now, writing one on Lance Deweese that'll be in our May magazine issue. Got more things coming out on guys like Freddie Raymer, Chase Dietz, Lucas Wolf, kind of feature stories. And I've got a lot planned. But up to this point, I'm trying to think anything else I put out. Haven't really put out too many big stories at this point in the season, kind of behind on work. But yeah, the one I did last year on Lance Deweese and Kyle Larson's friendship, I thought that was really cool. Just to kind of get those two to open up. People don't really think about that, when you think about guys like Lance Deweese and Kyle Larson, who are pretty keep to themselves. They're pretty shy guys. They don't really share a whole lot. So to get them to share enough about their personal lives was really cool. Because guys don't really think about it. People don't really think about it. If I'm a driver and if I see this person like me who's a young reporter and they don't really know him, like, do you trust him? Things like that, right? So it's just cool to earn trust and just to go in depth behind the scenes and just kind of tell stories, so that's really cool. So I got a lot coming out here, hopefully within this next month or two. And I hope people enjoy it, because definitely not easy to do, to earn the trust and to tell the stories, and and just try to enhance the racing experience for fans, and really give them more of a behind the scenes look at who these drivers are, telling their stories, giving them a look that they can't really see from the grandstands or behind their computer screens when they're streaming races. So yeah, I love it. I'm excited for what's to come. And yeah, I'm just looking forward to this whole year.
What, as you look around, maybe something in central Pennsylvania, maybe something with the All-Stars or Outlaws, like what's a couple of things you're going to kind of keep your eye on here going forward, kind of in the sprint car world?
You mentioned it. I think the All-Stars are going to be super fun to watch this year. The Outlaws, we all love the Outlaws. They're going to be super competitive this year, and that championship, I think, is going to come down to the final races, I think. But the All-Stars, there's so much unknowns there. You got guys, it seems like, coming in from every corner of the racing world. You got Tyler Courtney, all the USAC success that he's had. You have the Pennsylvania guys like Brent Marks and Lucas Wolf and Kyle Reinhardt. And then you got Corey Eliason coming back, who's finished second, I believe, the Aaron Wright's the past 2 years. Can he take his game to the next level and finally capitalize and win a championship? You got guys like Bill Baylog on the All-Star Tour. Trying to think, see if there's anybody else. Oh, Justin Peck.
Yep.
He's so strong right now and really confident too. And that's big. Confidence is key. He's won twice in Central PA. He's run very well. Honestly, those wins at the Grove and Port Royal, those are big confidence boosters. But as I mentioned earlier, going from almost not making the show at Lincoln because of an absolutely terrible pill draw to finishing ninth at the Icebreaker on a very heavy, wet track. Honestly, I looked at that performance in that first race out of the box in that 13 car for him in PA, and I'm like, dang, like this guy's going to be good in this car. So it's like you look at those performances and, I don't know who should be deemed the favorite in the All-Star Tour, but right now, like if you wanted to buy stock on drivers, like buy stock on Justin Peck, just to see what he's done in a short amount of time in that car, and a confidence, and just like the way he talks and the way he communicates to his team, that matters too. He's so detailed with the way that he describes his race car and how he breaks things down. And so yeah, that's going to be a fun series to watch. And then the Outlaws, when is Donnie going to pick up, win 300, and Brad Sweet really molded into his elite self, in the sprint car world. And the shark racing guys like Logan Schuhart and Jacob Allen, can they keep raising the bar? David Gravel's been good too in that big game car, and Carson Macedo has been good in that 41 car. So there's a lot of storylines right now, to really watch. Out in Knoxville, Brian Brown, looking forward to him coming to PA when he can. Yeah, so there's a lot of moving parts and pieces right now in the sprint car world, and it's a lot to keep up on. And appreciate what you do too, giving good light to dirt track racing and sprint car racing and late model racing too. Late model racing, sprint car racing's tough, but I don't think it gets tougher than late model racing, honestly. Late model racing, and that'll be fun to watch from afar too. Just kind of how things shake out with the World of Outlaws late models. You got Kyle Strickler now running with them, I think, with Brandon Shepard and Jonathan Davenport, Jimmy Owens, and Tim McCready, Josh Richards on the Lucas Oil late model series. They come to PA here pretty soon in the next 2.5 weeks. So yeah, look forward to watching them. And yeah, I think it's going to be a great year racing. People want that full year back after last year. And, looking forward to it.
I think, the like one of the things I'm excited about, and I talked about it actually yesterday on my daily show, is this Bloomsburg Fairgrounds racetrack. And I'm curious, what about the situation there. I mentioned yesterday, Steve O'Neill is promoting this. And if people know anything about Steve O'Neill, it's that he's Port Royal into this incredible facility. So, what have you heard about that racetrack? Are you going to get a chance to go see some races there? Or, where are you at with Bloomsburg?
I don't really know much, honestly. All that, Steve O'Neill, once, it's really cool to see a racetrack come back to life. But when I saw that Steve O'Neill was going to be doing it, well, first I saw the USAC races were going there. And then I'm like, well, these guys mean business. If you're going to bring the USAC here multiple times in your first year, that means a lot. And then to see Steve O'Neill kind of come in and lead the charge with the promotion side of things, that's when I was like, okay, like this can really be something big. So I think that's awesome, to see a guy like Steve come in. I haven't really talked to Steve a whole lot as to why Bloomsburg on top of Port Royal, and what kind of are some things he has planned for that, and the kind of the visions for Bloomsburg and Port Royal, which I would imagine, Bloomsburg, I've never been there, but it's probably a completely different environment than Port Royal from what I am kind of thinking. Or they could be the same. I don't really know. But it's really cool to have a 3/8 mile track in PA on top of Lincoln, because honestly, in my opinion, the 3/8 tracks, the 4/10 tracks like Lincoln Best, I think they produce the best kind of racing. It's not too small, but it's not too big where things can get kind of strung out and not boring, but don't really see a whole lot of passing sometimes on the big tracks. And so it's really cool to see Bloomsburg come back into the picture all these years later. And I don't see any 410 races on the schedule, 410 wing races on the schedule, but hopefully next year, they can get some races on the schedule there. And yeah, it's cool. They have a kind of diverse slate of races. You got the USAC coming in, you got the midgets coming in, you got late models coming in, you got midgets, you got 305s, you got modifieds, the super dirt series is, I think, coming in later on in the year. So that's awesome, so right as when things couldn't get bigger in PA in terms of racing and tracks, to see Bloomsburg come in a age where people freak out when racetracks, die basically and don't really come back. And, rightfully so. It's sad when tracks kind of fade out and kind of don't come back and they have to be torn down. It's really cool to see Bloomsburg come in and to see what's happening there. And I hope to go out to a race this year. I plan to at least be there for the midget week races. And so, yeah, we'll see. My schedule's quite busy. I got like 100 races planned for the year, which is awesome, but it's a lot to keep track of too. So we'll see.
Yeah, well, for sure. I appreciate the time today. I'll let you go on this, but I want to know, kind of as we close out, your kind of history covering stick and ball sports and coming into motorsports. When you kind of compare athletes to race car drivers, and you've talked about confidence and stuff with Justin Peck.
Yeah.
You see kind of crossover, and then on top of that, like, with what about stick and ball guys, when you come in and kind of interview race car drivers, can you get a sense from those guys, who is going to be good and maybe who's going to struggle, just based on personalities and things about them as you interview them?
I've never had that question asked before. It's probably the biggest one. I think you can sense a lot. I think you can sense a whole trajectory of a race car driver's career based off of how they speak, the way they speak, what they think of themselves, their team, how they communicate things, confidence level, how they build on things onto the next race. And then you look at small spurts, small chunks of a driver's racing career or season. And it's like, okay, like they were running so well here. What happened here? What happened along the lines, and, how are they trying to get out of that? So, yeah, I mean, it's huge. I think it's all correlated. I think it's all connected. I was having a conversation with Kyle Larson last month, or right after few days after his Vegas win, and I'm kind of working on a story on him. The mentality part of it for him was huge. You look at a guy like Kyle Larson, who we all know what he does on dirt, but for so many years he couldn't get over that Chili Bowl hump. And when he won the Chili Bowl, that's when he won the Chili Bowl last year, that's what opened the floodgates for his huge year and for even what he's doing now. So you look at, confidence is everything. And, an athlete's mind is an athlete's mind, no matter what sport it is, no matter what they're doing. So to be around college basketball players and to be around race car drivers, obviously, can't really compare much, but the one thing that you can compare is their mindsets and the way they prepare and the way they study. and watching film. Like, I coach basketball, and we watch lots of film, right, on our teams and how we play, and other teams too, and how they play and styles of basketball. And it's really cool to talk with drivers. Like, they also watch film on themselves, on racetracks, on other drivers. Like Lance DeWeese, even last year, was watching bits, and he was watching lots of races of Kyle Larson on how to run the fence at Port Royal, just so he can try to have a little piece of that in his racing game. So, and then for those who saw what he did the night before the Tuscarora 50, he was running the fence not as good as Kyle. Actually, he ran the fence well
Pretty
enough
good
to neutralize what Kyle Larson was doing, at least in turns 1 and 2 at Port Royal. So it's really cool to kind of, hear drivers talk about other drivers, and the confidence and what they think of, what they think they need to do to get better. And and then you kind of get a feel of body language, and talk about what they're trying to do to get better, and watch film and things like that, and preparation. And and the drivers that bounce around a lot and don't really, I feel like, settle themselves down, those are the ones that I don't really worry about. But you kind of look at it and they're like, okay, like, at some point in time, you need to develop relationships in the sport, and that's key. So a guy like Shane Stewart, who values their relationships all throughout his time during racing, and because he valued his relationships, he's now an owner of Port City. So it even goes beyond that. So you have to think about life after racing. But yeah, it's that side of me, I think, is really cool in terms of translating that, taking what I kind of learned along the way, throughout covering college basketball and high school sports, and kind of taking that into the racing side of things, and kind of having a pretty solid feel on, how successful teams run and work and function, and, how drivers kind of go about their business. So,
well,
yeah.
give me the plug zone. Where can we follow you, and where can we find your work?
Yeah. So you can find my work on Speed Sport and Sprint Car and midgetmagazine.com. I'm on Twitter at by Kyle McFadden. It's just BY and then my name. Those are the main kind of 3 outlets that I post my work, have my work published. And yeah, trying to tweet more, trying to get more creative with, social media content, ideas, this and that. Not really a huge, fan of being on social media all day, every day, but just for various reasons. But
Yep.
Yeah, trying to be more creative with trying to, give fans more creative content, and, things that they want to see and hear and read. So yeah.
Cool. Well, Kyle McFadden, thanks for the time today.
Thank you so much, man, for just taking the time out of your day to have me on, and hope to do this again soon.